The true cause of Queen Elizabeth's death remains one of the most persistent enigmas in history. In her last days, she refused permission for a post-mortem examination, leaving behind a trail of speculation, rumors, and unresolved questions. Although the precise reason for her passing was never established, there are fascinating hints that might suggest what ultimately ended the Virgin Queen's life. Everyone is familiar with the iconic image of Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, who ruled England from 1558 until her death. In portraits, she appears almost otherworldly, a slender figure draped in layers of lavish gowns with a strikingly pale complexion framed by towering white ruffs. Elizabeth I continues to be among England's most renowned sovereigns. She was the daughter of the notorious King Henry VIII and his brilliant yet ill-fated second wife, Anne Boleyn, who was executed when Elizabeth was merely 2 years old. Elizabeth ascended to power in 1558, following the death of her half-sister, Queen Mary. As the last living legitimate child of Henry VIII, her rise to the throne was secured after the earlier deaths of her younger half-brother Edward VI in 1553 and Mary only 5 years later. This sequence cleared the way for her reign. What ensued was an extraordinary 45-year rule that reshaped England into a mighty force on the world stage. Elizabeth became not only a monarch, but also a legend. However, the final years of her life were clouded by grief. As she aged, her health deteriorated, and trusted companions passed away, marking a sorrowful chapter toward the end of her remarkable life. The allure that once enchanted the courtiers gradually diminished, bringing with it waves of sorrow, what we might today describe as depression. The queen who had once captivated all of Europe was slowly withdrawing into obscurity. Let's start by delving into Queen Elizabeth's profound obsession with beauty and her tireless quest for everlasting youth. Despite receiving proposals from some of Europe's most influential and eligible aristocrats, such as Frank Duke of Anjou and Alan, brother of King Henry III of France, Elizabeth remained unmarried. Nevertheless, she was determined to project an image of youthfulness, vitality, and charm, regardless of her advancing years. To uphold this appearance, Elizabeth increasingly depended on cosmetics as time passed. It was not just a mere touch of rouge or powder. She became famous for layering thick, pale makeup to achieve the ghostly perfect complexion admired by the English elite of that era. In the 16th century, ideals of beauty required skin as white as porcelain, smooth, blemish-free, and untouched by sunlight or age. Pale skin symbolized nobility and purity, and Elizabeth embraced this standard with intense dedication. However, her use of makeup was not solely driven by fashion. After enduring a serious attack of smallpox in 1562, Elizabeth was left with visible facial scars. Her iconic white face paint served not only as a fashion statement, but as a mask designed to hide these imperfections and preserve her royal image. Paradoxically, the very cosmetics she depended on may have caused her more harm than benefit. Some of the ingredients were poisonous, and over time the paint she applied so devotedly might have worsened her failing health. On October 10, 1562, Queen Elizabeth I was struck by a dreadful illness. Smallpox back then was among the most lethal diseases of the 16th century, taking the lives of about 30% of those infected. There was no remedy, no vaccination, and very limited knowledge on how to manage it. Elizabeth was fortunate to survive, yet the sickness left its traces. Though her life was saved, her face was altered. The once smooth skin of the queen was now marked with evident scars scattered across her face, like lasting reminders of her brush with death. For a ruler, appearance was far from mere vanity. It signified authority. Royals were demanded to personify flawlessness, and Elizabeth's pocked face exposed her to judgment, rumors, and criticism from every side within her court. In her desperate attempt to conceal the damage and preserve the image of a perfect, timeless queen, Elizabeth resorted to a favored cosmetic of the era called Venetian ceruse. This harmful blend of white lead and vinegar was thickly spread on the face and neck, producing a porcelain-like effect that covered every flaw. However, there was a grim price. Modern science reveals truths Elizabeth could never have known. Lead is an extremely poisonous metal. Continued use can lead to skin damage, hair loss, muscle weakness, anemia, and even fatal lead poisoning. Day after day, as she layered on her trademark pale mask, Elizabeth might have unknowingly worsened her condition. She may have been gradually poisoning herself. The very substance that helped conceal her imperfections could have accelerated her decline. What is truly alarming is that lead poisoning does not always reveal its symptoms immediately. The harm can be quiet, accumulating slowly over a period of time. Signs usually emerge only when the concentration in the bloodstream has reached a critical threshold. Therefore, while Queen Elizabeth might have appeared calm and composed, the poison was already acting beneath the surface. She was known for being extremely careful about her looks, dedicating hours each day to her preparation. Yet, as years of heavy makeup usage damaged her skin, she simply applied increasing amounts. By the end of her life, it is said that her characteristic white foundation was almost 1 inch thick. To make things worse, Elizabeth reportedly had her makeup put on only once weekly and kept it on constantly. This meant that the lead-infused ceruse had days to penetrate her skin, absorbing deeper with every passing hour. Lead was not the sole toxic substance affecting her royal visage. When she finally removed her makeup, it is believed she used a mixture containing crushed eggshells, alum, and perhaps most alarmingly, mercury. Today, mercury is recognized as extremely poisonous, with effects such as memory loss, mood swings, irritability, and depression. These are symptoms that Elizabeth allegedly experienced during her last years. Some historians think that mercury not only affected her mental state, but also physically eroded her flesh. In her relentless pursuit to preserve everlasting youth, the Queen may have unknowingly signed a gradual and painful death warrant. Layer upon layer, week by week, Elizabeth's fixation on beauty went beyond pale skin. She also desired vibrant, crimson lips. To realize this, she turned to lipstick crafted from cinnabar, a highly toxic mineral that contains mercury. During the Tudor and Elizabethan periods, many believed lipstick was not merely a cosmetic item, but held magical properties. Some even claimed it could protect one from death itself. Therefore, whenever Elizabeth felt ill or simply wished to enhance her image, she applied more and more of this pigment. By the time she passed away, it was said that her lips were covered in an astonishing thickness of crimson color, measuring nearly half an inch. However, these beauty practices were anything but harmless. Over the years, such treatments led to premature wrinkles, hastened aging, and a severe deterioration of her general health. It was not only her body that suffered, but her spirit crumbled as well. In her final years, Elizabeth was overwhelmed by sorrow. The loss of those closest to her, including her devoted lady-in-waiting Catherine Howard and her once cherished companion Robert Devo, the Earl of Essex, struck her profoundly. After she herself ordered Essex's execution, the burden of guilt became unbearable. By March, her health declined sharply, and she fell into a deep and unyielding melancholy. She spent many hours sitting silently and motionless on cushions. Observers reported that she wept frequently, expressing profound remorse over the deaths that haunted her soul. Regarding Mary Queen of Scots, Sir Robert Carey stated that Elizabeth insisted she never truly agreed to the execution. During her final days, Elizabeth wept frequently and refused to lie down, fearing that resting would hasten her death. She often stood for up to 15 hours, while her attendants anxiously surrounded her with cushions to prevent her collapse. Eventually, her strength failed, and the Queen fell, marking the end of England's Virgin Queen's long rule. On March 24, 603, Queen Elizabeth I breathed her last. The precise reason for her passing remains unclear. Some scholars suggest pneumonia, others believe cancer was to blame. However, it is widely acknowledged that decades of using toxic beauty products containing lead, mercury, and other harmful chemicals seriously affected her health. In her final moments, strange and disturbing details surfaced. Her lady-in-waiting, Elizabeth Southwell, reported that the Queen was plagued by visions and tormented by the sight of her own frail body. Southwell claimed a playing card with a nail through its head was found on the Queen's chair, considered a dark omen. Following Elizabeth's death, Southwell made a chilling statement that the Queen's body, sealed in a lead coffin, bloated with poisonous gases until it burst. Nevertheless, Southwell's stories are often met with skepticism. After the Queen's demise, she converted to Catholicism. Elizabeth had condemned religion, sparking doubts about the reasons behind her tale, yet there was one final heartbreaking event shortly before her death. For more than 4 decades, Elizabeth had never taken off her coronation ring, a strong emblem of her everlasting bond to England. However, over the years, the ring had grown deeply embedded in her skin, cutting into her flesh. The doctors demanded it be removed through surgery, but before the procedure could occur, Elizabeth passed away. Today, with advances in science, we recognize the risks associated with the substances she once relied upon to maintain her beauty. But in Elizabeth's era, knowledge was scarce, and the cost she bore for her appearance might have been her life. Nevertheless, Queen Elizabeth I left more than just a legacy of suffering and poison. She gifted England a period of relative calm, strength, and cultural prosperity. Her reign, lasting 45 years, is among the most remarkable in history. May she find eternal rest.